Hey guys, my name's Chrissy, and this is vlog number 3. This week we had 2 different readings. The first one is called Twilight at Easter, and the second one is The Last People Alive, Pitcarin and Henderson Islands. So, when I was reading Twilight at Easter, there was one main focus that I thought about. And so the article is about these indigenous people who build these amazing, huge statues out of wood and trees on the island, and they wipe it all out. It's a very scarce, there's a scarce amount of resources as it is. The island has insane winds, so crops and a lot of plantation can't grow. The water is too cold, so their fish and their water creatures are very limited. So what happens is the resources are used up, and the culture died. They all died off. So when I was reading this, I'm thinking about sign language, and the one thing that came to mind was hearing people years ago had this drive to just wipe out sign language. They wanted to, in schools, if children would sign, the teachers would bind their hands together so they couldn't communicate with each other. They would slap their wrists, their hands with rulers, stuff like that. It was a drive to promote what's called oralism, which is speaking. They wanted everyone to be the same. Everyone should speak. So the way I kind of saw the similarity is, the people didn't realize, you have this culture that you're trying to preserve. You have limited amount of resources that you really should be trying not to completely demolish. And then you have, the hearing culture with deaf studies. You have this amazing other culture that they have just, the same amount of rights to sign as you are to speak. So it's this preservation. A lot of people growing up years ago, this was the early 1900s, something like that, grew up oral. They don't speak well because their first language is sign language. So they have the ability to speak, but they were brought up not to. So that leads into the second idea that came from The Last People Alive, the Pitcarin and Henderson Islands. These two, the Pitcairn and the Henderson Islands, are very dependent on this island called Mangariva? Probably didn't say that right. So they got all their resources from there, and once they decided to kind of, isolate themselves from this island, they wiped themselves out. So what I thought of most here is the idea that, years ago, hearing people wanted to just get rid of sign language. They just, get out of here, you don't belong in a speaking culture. But now, hearing people depend on interpreting as a career. Deaf people have this amazing impact on job outlooks, different things. And it's not that hearing people are dependent on deaf people. It's the idea that it gives you more of a broad focus of jobs. So if we didn't have deaf people, we wouldn't have interpreter jobs, we wouldn't have, hard of hearing, hearing impaired, any kind of job that you're going to be helping facilitate communication between two different languages. And it's, that's the way I kind of see it. It's, you're dependent on these people that you originally were trying to demolish, and not necessarily the people, but demolish the language. So that's the similarities I saw. I'll see you next week.